In a forgotten corner of the Appalachian Hills, where sunlight seemed to never reach, lay the town of Black Hollow, shrinking, silent like a ghost lost in time. Muddy roads wound through sagging houses, where the townsfolk lived with cautious eyes and trembling voices. At the edge of town, on a barren hill, stood the haunted house, or as they called it, Hollow House, glaring down like a beast waiting to strike. Its rotting black wooden frame looked like the skeleton of some ancient giant. Broken windows stared like hollow eye sockets, and its caved-in roof whispered curses. In the voice of the wind, no one dared go near. No one dared stare too long. They said anyone who stepped through its front door at night never lived to see the morning. But the stories weren't just fireside tales. Locals spoke of wailing cries drifting from the hill. On moonless nights, of figures standing at the windows, even though no one had lived there in decades. Some swore they saw blood seeping from the walls, pooling into black, smoking puddles on the ground. But the worst was the curse. No soul survived the first night inside. The curious, the brave, the foolish, all vanished, leaving behind silence and desperate claw marks on the wooden door. 3 college students, Jake, Sarah, and Ethan, laughed at the warnings. They came from the city, where neon lights banished the dark, and ghost stories were nothing but viral content. Jake, messy-haired and cocky, led the way. He carried a camera, ready to live stream the entire night inside. "We'll be famous," he grinned, ambition burning in his eyes. Sarah, cautious and soft-spoken, wasn't so sure. She'd listened to the old woman at the market, who had gripped her hand and whispered, "Don't go in there, child. That thing, it isn't a house. It's a mouth." But Sarah didn't want to be the scared one, so she nodded, though her heart pounded in her chest. Ethan, quiet and thoughtful, followed last. He held a flashlight, but its weak beam couldn't chase away the crawling dark. That night, the sky was starless. Only a razor-thin crescent moon hung above, sharp as a blade. Wind howled through dead trees, carrying with it a low moan from nowhere. As they stood before Hollow House, the air thickened, like space itself was closing in. The front door, scratched and scarred, groaned. As Jake pushed it open, dust exploded into the air. A freezing breath of air rushed out, as if the house itself had exhaled. Sarah clutched Ethan's hand and whispered, "I don't like this place." But Jake just laughed, stepping over the threshold, camera already rolling. They didn't know that in that exact moment, Hollow House awakened, and it was hungry. Inside Hollow House, darkness wasn't just the absence of light, it was alive. It breathed, it crawled. The air hung heavy with the stench of rotting wood, and something foul, like long-dried blood. Each step Jake, Sarah, and Ethan took made the floorboards groan, as if the house itself was protesting their presence. Cobwebs hung thick like mourning veils, brushing against their faces like invisible hands. Jake, camera held high, swept the faint flashlight beam across the main room. "Look at this. Just a pile of old junk," he shouted, but his voice echoed strangely, as if the walls were swallowing the sound. Sarah felt something different. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest, and somewhere deep within the house, a whisper echoed. Not words, but the sound of despair itself. Ethan gripped his flashlight tightly, casting it into a dark corner. The light passed over a cracked mirror on the wall, but it didn't reflect their faces. It showed something else, something distorted. White eyes, a gaping mouth. Sarah screamed, stumbling back. But when Ethan swung the light again, the mirror showed only darkness. "I swear I saw something," she said, trembling. Jake just scoffed. "Your imagination, Sarah. At least it makes the live stream more dramatic." He checked the camera, but the screen flickered, displaying streaks of static. Then a twisted voice, not belonging to any of them, hissed through the speaker. "You don't belong here." Jake jumped, dropping the camera. The screen cracked, but it still played back a low, raspy laughter. It didn't stop. The 3 stood frozen, their breath visible in the suddenly freezing air. The floor vibrated, like the heartbeat of some giant beast beneath them. Ethan, usually quiet, whispered, "We need to leave. Now." But when they turned back, the front door, the only exit they knew, was gone. In its place stood a wooden wall, carved with strange, jagged symbols, as if etched by fingernails. Sarah hugged her shoulders. Tears streaked her face. "What's happening?" she sobbed. Jake, trying to stay calm, pounded on the wall, but it didn't budge. Somewhere in the dark, a giggle echoed, like a child's laughter, twisted and cruel. They moved deeper into the house, hoping for another way out. The hallway ahead was narrow and winding. The walls peeled, revealing dark red streaks, like the house was bleeding. Ethan led the way, flashlight shaking in his hands. The beam landed on crooked portraits, faces with no names, eyes that seemed to follow them. One picture suddenly crashed to the floor, revealing a hole in the wall. Inside, dozens of wide, white eyes stared back, then vanished, as Sarah screamed. "Run!" she yelled. But the hallway stretched longer, the walls pressing inward. Then, a scream tore through the air. Not Sarah's, not Jake's. Ethan had vanished into the dark. His flashlight clattered to the floor, its beam catching a gaunt figure, hovering inches above the ground. His face was a blur, only a sharp-toothed smile, and clawed hands glinting in the light. Sarah collapsed. Jake, pale as a ghost, pulled her up. "Ethan," he shouted, but only echoes answered, mixed with howls. Not of this world. Hollow House was awake, and it had no intention of letting them go. The darkness ahead stretched wide, like a mouth, waiting to feed. Hollow House was no longer a house. It was alive. Its walls pulsed like a heartbeat. Its twisting halls curled like the intestines of some vast, waiting beast. Sarah and Jake ran panic-stricken, through endless corridors of shadow. Behind them, screams, scratching, claws scraping against wood and stone. The air pressed in around them, thick, choking, as if the darkness itself was squeezing tighter. Sarah sobbed, gripping Jake's shirt. Jake muttered, "It's not real, it's not real." But his eyes betrayed the truth, pure primal fear. They no longer called Ethan's name. His final scream had been swallowed by the dark, and the silence left behind was worse than any sound. The hallway ended in a large room, where a sliver of moonlight slipped through a shattered window, casting pale light onto a massive mirror. Its surface was warped, like charred human skin. Sarah stopped, trembling. In the mirror she saw her reflection, but it wasn't her. It was something twisted. White lidless eyes, a torn gaping mouth. Jake yanked her away, but the mirror shattered, glass flying, slicing their arms. From the shards, blackened hands emerged, clawed fingers raking at the air. "Run!" Jake yelled, but the floor beneath them softened, sinking, swallowing. A thick black ooze leaked from the walls. It stank of death. They stumbled down a staircase, into the basement. They had no choice. Each step echoed like hammer blows on a coffin lid. The basement was a cavern of rot and shadow. Rotted beams, webs thick as shrouds. In the center, a figure, Ethan, or something wearing his shape. His eyes were sewn shut with black thread. His mouth curled into a grotesque smile, teeth long and jagged. "Join us," he rasped, his voice layered, dozens speaking at once. Sarah screamed. She stumbled back, but from the shadows, invisible hands seized her ankles, pulling hard. Jake lunged forward, swinging at not Ethan, but his fist passed through black smoke. He was thrown backward, slammed into the wall. The darkness surged. It devoured everything. Sarah felt claws dig into her skin. She was dragged down, into a pit with no end. Jake, in his final moment, looked up. From the ceiling, a giant face emerged. No eyes, no nose, just a mouth, full of teeth. It grinned at him. "You belong to me," it growled. Then the darkness took him. Their screams vanished, lost to the groaning breath of Hollow House. At dawn, the haunted house was silent again. No sign of Jake, no Sarah, no Ethan. The front door, fresh with new claw marks, was shut, as if it had never opened. The people of Black Hollow never looked up the hill. They only whispered about the new cries they heard in the night. Hollow House still stood, patient, hungry, waiting for the next curious soul to step inside. The curse lives on, and the darkness within is never full.